joining this webinar about the Fulbright program for everyone who's interested in studying or conducting research in the United States. I hope everyone can hear me clearly and see the presentation. So I work as a program officer at the Fulbright Commission in Belgium, and I'll be giving an introduction today on the scholarships available via Fulbright. If you can hear the background noise, it started to rain pretty intensely here, so I apologize for any noise. As mentioned, we'll have time for questions after the presentation, which you can enter in the chat. So before telling more about the Fulbright program itself, I'd like to explain what exactly our commission in Belgium is doing. So our office is based in the heart of Brussels at KBR, or some of you might recognize the building. It's the Royal Library of Belgium. And we work around two pillars. So on one hand, we manage the Fulbright scholarship program for Belgian and Luxembourgish citizens who intend to study, conduct research, or lecture in the US. We award grants starting from the graduate level, meaning a master's or PhD degree, or research as a doctoral student, or even postdoctoral research as a research scholar. We also happen to administer the Fulbright Schumann program that awards grants for research in the US with a strong focus on the European Union. Unlike our national awards for Belgian and Luxembourgish citizens, the Fulbright Schumann program is open to all European citizens. More information about all the grants we offer for Belgians, but also for Europeans, you can find more information on fulbright.be or fulbrightschumann.eu. We also happen to host our own Education USA Advising Center in Brussels, which is a U.S. Department of State network of more than 400 advising centers around the globe. And the mission of Education USA is to promote higher education in the U.S. by offering accurate and current information about opportunities to study at post-secondary institutions. And so basically, we advise students on any question that they have about U.S. higher education. For more information, you can also go to educationusa.be or make an advising appointment. So if you're interested in U.S. studies, you will have to think about the cost to attend a U.S. university. It's important to consider both tuition and the cost of living, so we always recommend making a realistic budget. For example, if you intend to enroll in a graduate program with a degree as a result, you will always be charged something called tuition. As you may already have found out, the cost of higher education in the US is significantly higher than in Belgium or Europe in general, for several reasons. Partly because not all universities are financially supported by the US government, or not very largely. And so tuition refers to the actual cost of instruction, and it can vary greatly from school to school. For example, private universities, which do not receive any funding from the government, tend to charge higher tuition fees than large public universities. Also remember that there is no correlation between the level of tuition and the quality of an institution. Something I like to note that as a non-degree visiting student researcher or a research scholar, there is generally no tuition unless you enroll in some courses. It's common, though, that the university will charge at least a standard registration fee or potentially a fee for benefits that are not included during your stay. For example, making use of certain campus services, such as office space or library access. In addition to tuition, you must also estimate the living expenses associated with attending a particular university at a certain location. So living expenses can be any cost that you also have in Belgium. For example, transportation, housing, health insurance, and any other sort of similar expense. Of course, you might already know that some areas like California in the Northeast, such as New York City, are traditionally more expensive. So this is something to think about. If you're a little bit unsure on how to find out the exact cost, usually each university or some university website offer information on estimated living costs by actually having a calculator online. And also, you should be able to find certain calculators online that give you the estimated cost per month for a particular area. So there are many different ways to finance your studies or research in the US. These include things such as scholarships, which can be based on merit and typically awarded to very competitive students, for example, on outstanding academic performance. You also have something called financial aid, which is based on demonstrated financial need, which is, to be fair, something more relevant for for American students usually. So you have to remember that for scholarships, you're always in competition with both American citizens, but also with other international students. So most international students tend to focus on merit-based scholarships. You can also combine certain loans, for example, or even some student employment while you're in the US. Now, it's very common in general that both American students and international students rely on personal and family funding as a source of income. So it's pretty rare to receive a full scholarship that would pay for all your expenses, such as tuition and living costs. It's not impossible, though. Sometimes it happens. But I would also say, as a researcher, if you're not going to enroll into a degree program, you probably are more likely to finance your stay in the US fully without breaking the bank. So this brings me to the Fulbright program. So first, I wanted to give a little bit of history on how the Fulbright program came into existence, so you have some background information. So the program was created more than 70 years ago in 1946 by a senator, which you can actually see on the slide. He unfortunately passed away in 1995. But he was a senator in Arkansas, and he was named J. William Fulbright. And what he did is he introduced a bill in the US Congress that called for using money from selling leftover war property after the events of the Second World War to use this money basically for the greater good and to fund this new program that aimed to promote educational exchange. The program was approved by the president at the time, Harry Truman. And already 2 years later, we had the first exchanges between the US and Belgium. So just to remember, Fulbright is a bilateral program between the US and other countries globally. And the mission is to increase mutual understanding between the people of the United States and people of other countries. And we do this by sending American students and academics to other countries and by bringing foreign students and academics, such as Belgians, to the United States. And still today, more than 70 years after the creation of the program, Fulbright is one of the most widely recognized international exchange programs in the world. It's supported by the US Department of State and partner nations globally. And so with the program, we actively seek out passionate and talented students and scholars who can represent their own society as an ambassador, and we select nominees through open merit-based competitions. Since the program began, more than 370,000 Fulbrighters have participated in the program globally, so coming from and going to more than 160 countries. So, in short, the Fulbright Alumni Network is a group of students, scholars, and professionals. As I mentioned earlier, we administer the program for Belgian and Luxembourgish citizens, and uniquely also for European citizens via the Fulbright Schumann program. But the program is administered worldwide by commissions and US embassies that administer the program for their citizens. So, for example, you will find a Fulbright commission, whether it's in France, Spain, India, or even Japan. Now let's take a look at all available grants. So the Fulbright Commission in Belgium offers grants to study, lecture, or conduct research in the US. So grants are available in the student category and the scholar category, but we also have the foreign language teaching assistantship program for young teachers to assist in lecturing French, Dutch, or German at a US university. And we even have grants for mid-career professional journalists. Of course, we don't have time to go into all the grants, but you can also find all the grants that we offer on either of our websites. So if you're a student, you could apply for the graduate studies or doctoral research grant. This grant is aimed at students who want to pursue graduate studies or research in the US at an accredited US university. So this can take form as a master's degree, a 1-year or even a 2-year program, or research as part of an ongoing doctoral degree in Belgium. It can also be in the form of even pre-doctoral research, so before you would start a PhD in Belgium, or to pursue a PhD degree in the US as well, which is less common because it's usually 5 years in order to conduct a PhD in the US, and usually people need more funding. So we usually get more applications for a master's program or research as a part of a doctoral degree, for example. So grants can be awarded for a minimum of 4 months and a maximum of 9 months in the student category. And the stipend would be up to $2,000 per month if selected for this award, including other benefits. So, for example, if you would do a 1-year master degree, you could get funding for 9 months, so a full academic year. But for researchers who want to only spend a semester in the US, you could, for example, go for 5 months or 6 months, or even a full year if you are able to do that. Grants are also available at the postgraduate level for scholars. So that is applicants who already have completed their PhD, or if you will complete your PhD before starting your program in the US. And this is to lecture or conduct research at an accredited US institution. So scholars may propose a research stay with a duration as short as 3 months, but also the same as a student category up to a full academic year. Again, this grant is aimed at researchers or professors who intend to lecture or do a combination of research and lecturing. And people who are selected for this award get a stipend of up to $3,000 per month, including other benefits. Then we have the FLTA program, which is basically for young teachers or people who just graduated to spend a year as a foreign language teaching assistant in one of the 3 official languages of Belgium, so French, German, or Dutch, in an American college or university. So again, this program is intended for recent graduates or young teachers with a background in languages or education or even literature sometimes. Successful candidates for this particular program are placed in a US institution, so they're matched based on their preferences, where they can receive housing, meals, a monthly stipend, and also the possibility to even enroll into some courses at the university they would be teaching at. The good news is that being selected as a Fulbrighter offers more than just financial support. So, as I said, if you're selected in the student category, the amount is set of $2,000 per month for students, while if you're applying in the scholar category, you can get a scholarship of $3,000 per month. But in addition to the financial benefits, all Fulbright grantees also receive J1 visa sponsorship, as well as J2 visa sponsorship for any accompanying dependents, which can be your spouse or children, for example. We also offer pre-departure orientation in Brussels each year, which this year we did virtually for obvious reasons. We also give a $1,000 travel stipend to cover any costs you would have for traveling to the US. While in the US, Fulbrighters also receive sickness and accident insurance and are also invited to participate in in-country programming. So this includes gateway orientations or certain enrichment seminars that you could be invited to. Basically, the aim of this is to give you even a better experience. So we invite people, you will have the opportunity to interact with other Fulbrighters from around the world. And also interesting is that during your stay in the US, you would receive support from our partner, which is IIE, the Institute of International Education. So they assist in administering the program, and they would be available in country for any questions that you would have while you're there, whether it's professionally or academically or even personally. And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, all Fulbrighters receive access to the membership, the alumni network after returning, and of course receiving the prestigious title of being a Fulbright grantee. And so being part of this network after your return is particularly useful if you are just about to start your professional career, or if you're already a scholar and you want to expand your network. So what about eligibility requirements? So in order to be eligible for the Fulbright program, there are some minimum requirements. So applicant must have Belgian or Luxembourgish citizenship when applying for our national awards. Additionally, you must have a minimum of a bachelor's degree for all programs. And normally, successful applicants will be able to demonstrate a record of personal or academic excellence, although we do encourage people to apply regardless of academic results, because our selection process is pretty holistic. So we also look at motivation as a Fulbrighter, which is very important. English proficiency is also required, as the entire application process is in English, although we do not ask for any exam scores or anything. In a separate but simultaneous process, you should also seek admission or affiliation with an accredited U.S. university. So while you're applying for a Fulbright grant, you would also be applying or seeking affiliation at a certain university, because the Fulbright Commission is not responsible for arranging the affiliation. Just a quick note is that some grants have additional eligibility requirements, so please make sure to check out each grant page extensively. For example, if you're a postdoctoral researcher, you need a PhD, for example. Quickly looking at the timeline. So the competition started on September 15. It's an online application that you need to fill in by December 1st, including all the required documents. You can see the timeline, so people are invited for an interview when selected in the top ranking. And eventually the final confirmation of selection would be in March. And then after that, we would work with each grantee on collecting the necessary visa documents. So most people will depart somewhere near the end of the summer if you're starting in September. But in theory, you can actually depart later as well, as long as your program would fit into the academic year that you're applying for. And this is what you need to prepare in terms of application materials. So there's always an online application that you will need to fill in. Each grant candidate also needs to submit an Americanized resume, a scan of your latest diploma and transcripts, including 3 recommendation letters. In the student category, you also need to upload a study or research goals essay and a personal statement essay. While if you're applying in the scholar category, you need to provide a project statement for your research, including a list of references. In the student category, you need to provide your letter of admission eventually, not on December 1st. So you can provide your letter of admission after, like around March or something. Student researcher are recommended to provide their letter of affiliation by the deadline if possible. On the scholar side, you are required to upload your letter of affiliation by the December 1st deadline. And just very quickly to finish, because I think we're running out of time, the Fulbright essays are probably one of the most important documents that you need to provide. So all our applications are evaluated by our selections committee, which is a very diverse group of professionals, academics from all fields of study. And so as an applicant, you need to demonstrate ambassadorial qualities and, of course, a genuine interest in cultural exchange. It's very important in your application to articulate a clear and creative plan for your time in the US and to explain why this is the perfect time for you to actually go to the US and to achieve your personal and professional goals. So this is an overview of the 2 essays in the student category. So the study or research essay is more focused on your study or research goals, while the personal statement is more like a narrative of yourself. So focus more on your personal story. So any goals you have achieved, talking about your education, your experience, your interests, and future plans. We recommend keeping each essay a 1-pager or a 2-pagers. I mean, you're not going to be disqualified if your essays would be longer than 1 page, but just keep this in mind. If you're applying in the scholar category, you would need to instead write a project statement, so not these 2 essays. But basically, in the Fulbright application, you will always be asked about your motivation, whether it's an essay or, just in a field that you need to fill in. So, all right, so this was a very short webinar or presentation about the Fulbright program. So any further questions, you can always reach us at info@fulbright.be. And we also have our two websites, fulbright.be and fulbrightschumann.eu. And of course, most of the information and details on how to apply eligibility can be found on our website. So not to worry if you feel like you have missed something.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Williams, for that clear presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams, for your presentation.